These two tractors may look very similar, but under the hood and under all that tin, they are built very differently. If you are stuck between the John Deere 300 and the 318, this video will help you decide which garden tractor is the right fit for you. If you are looking to buy one of these tractors, or maybe you're just curious what sets them apart, you have come to the right place. I have owned both of these tractors for years and I have worked them side by side. Before we dive into the engines and features, it's important to know that this comparison is not only relevant to just these two models, but the 300 and the 318 represent two different frame styles that are used across the 300 series lineup. The 300 uses a closed frame design, which is carried over from the John Deere 140, while the 318 was re-engineered with an all-new open frame design. So while each model in the 300 series has its own quirks and specific features, the whole series can be broken up into closed frame tractors and open frame tractors. And I'll have a list down in the description that breaks up all the models into which frame style they have. And the difference in frame will come into play when we start talking about the attachments that go with these tractors. While the difference in the power output between these two tractors is not all that significant, the 300 has a single cylinder Kohler that puts out 16 horsepower, and the 318 steps that up to 18 horsepower with its twin-cylinder Onan engine. It's the difference between that two-cylinder Onan and the single-cylinder Kohler where the difference can really be felt. That Onan engine is noticeably smoother running, especially at lower RPMs. And the additional 2 horsepower can really make a difference when pushing these tractors to their limits. In my opinion, there is one key difference that sets the 318 apart from the 300 and apart from many of the garden tractors within its class. And that is this hydrostatic power steering. The power steering makes the 318 effortless to use for long periods of time, and the ability to more quickly change direction gives the 318 a safer feel while operating. I tend to drive the 300 much more cautiously when I'm using it, which can add time to the tasks that I'm performing. Well, one downside to the power steering system is that it adds complexity to the machine. It is another part that needs to be maintained, and it has a lot of working parts that can get worn out or break and need to be repaired. So if you are not bothered by the little bit of extra effort that it takes to steer the 300, that extra maintenance might not be worth it. The 300 is overall a more simple machine. The single-cylinder engine makes for a less complicated ignition system, which has points instead of the electrical ignition found on the later 318s with the P218 Onan. If you like to do all your own maintenance, the simplicity of the 300 might be a benefit to you. Hey, if you're enjoying this comparison and you want more videos on the 300 series, go down and hit that like button and subscribe because I have a ton more coming. Although both of these tractors were built like tanks, they are getting older. Even the newest 318 is 33 years old at the time of me filming this, and the oldest 300 is 50 years old. So while many replacement parts are still available, with the 300 being older and less of them being produced, there was only about half as many 300s made as the 318. Parts for the 300 are generally harder to find. I have yet to not be able to find a part that I needed for either machine though, but it is just a matter of time before I come across something that is no longer available, and I am especially worried about that for the 300. So getting an extra parts machine for that tractor might not be a bad idea. One really cool thing about the whole John Deere 300 series is that they all use the same front-mounted attachments. From snowblowers to blades and even sweepers, any attachment that I have for the 300 will work on the 318 and vice versa. There are some differences between the tractors that make some attachments not work as well. Like if you have a tractor that has only one hydraulic hookup on the front, you won't be able to use something like the 4-way blade, but you would be able to use a blade in just a 2-way function. And a lot of these attachments even go back to the 140, which predates both of these models. And that kind of compatibility makes it very easy to upgrade from one tractor to another. Like if you have a 300 and you want to step up to a 318, but you're worried about all the attachments that you have, like you have a snowblower for it or you have a blade for it, and you're like, I don't want to have to get another one if I get a 318, you don't have to worry at all because those attachments will work with the 318. And it's also cool if you want to run multiple machines. Like I have the 318, 322, and the 300. They all use the same front attachments, so I can switch out whatever I need to. depending on which tractor I need to use at the time. But things change when you move to the back of the tractors. The rear attachments are not interchangeable. If you have a tiller for the 318, it is not going to work on the 300. If you have a sleeve hitch for the 300, it's not going to work on the 318. But once again, the 300 kind of has an edge on the simplicity of the rear attachments. It just has a belt and pulley style PTO system that just slips into a yoke in the back of the tractor, and it allows things like the tiller to just run off of a belt system while still being able to be operated for the up and down feature using the hydraulics. It just doesn't have a independent PTO system that is all run off of the same PTO that would be the front or the mid-mount deck, whereas the 318 has a whole separate 2000 RPM rear PTO system that can be used to run those rear attachments. And a hydraulic tiller is also available. But most of that stuff for the 318 is pretty spendy, whereas the parts and the implements that you can put on the back of the 300 tend to be not as much, which is actually a big reason why I got the 300 in the first place. So whether you lean towards the simplicity of the 300 or the power and ease of use of the 318, you are getting a piece of John Deere's garden tractor history. For me, the 300 might not be my go-to for really heavy duty work, like working with my loader. That's where the 318 really shines. But I will always have a John Deere 300 in my stable. It's one of my favorite garden tractors of all time. And if you want to know any more about either one of these tractors, I got a couple playlists right here, and I'll see you on the next one. God, the bugs are terrible.